Hi there, Danish learner. Welcome back to my channel, Danish Matters. I'm Tina Baga, your Danish friend and tutor. I know this is not the normal surroundings that I have sitting here in my car. It's just the most practical today. I really hope it's gonna work. Maybe I'm gonna lean a little forward sometimes, but to protect my back, I might be sitting like this most of the time. I hope that you can bear with me. Also, if there's a little bit of background noise, I have the heating going in the car. Birds are chirping outside. Maybe there will be a car once in a while passing by, and yeah, I hope it's gonna work out fine anyway. This video is gonna be a long one. I have a lot to say, and I've been thinking about it for a long time, actually, because I hear lots of different stories from lots of different people with lots of different cultural backgrounds here in Denmark. And yeah, I want to acknowledge their experience in Denmark. And being outside the norm, as I've called this video, is part of that. I have a whole list of ways that you can be outside the norm in Denmark. If you're not on the list, if you consider yourself outside the norm in one way or the other, it is not to exclude anyone. It is just hard to include everyone. So I hope that you'll bear with me, and you can write in the comments your experience, whether you're on my list or not, because it is nice for other people. Being outside the norm for them might be an experience that you can share with people who can then feel seen and understood. So please just do that. And if you're new here, welcome. I am Tina Baga. I've been teaching Danish. That is normally what I do for many years, since 2009. And I do these videos because I want to have foreigners feel more welcome in Denmark, and that includes knowing more about the language and more about the culture. So that is why I make these videos. As you can also see, I don't edit, so there's a lot of and rephrasing and me thinking and looking down on notes and all of that. And right now my phone is falling down. That's not part of the issue normally. But that is what I do. I want to be more authentic than most people are on the internet. It is on purpose. It's deliberate. So you have to be able to tolerate that if you want to follow my channel, which of course I hope that you will. Please like and subscribe already now. That would be nice. I really love this channel. I really love talking to you, and I really want it to grow further. So like and subscribe, and you can also support this channel either with just one amount, any amount that you like, just for a one-time payment, or you can do it monthly on Buy Me a Coffee. There will be a link for that in the comments. I really appreciate you doing that, because of course it is on my own time and dime that I do this. So supporting me, my work, my channel, but my work in general as a Danish teacher and as a cultural representative and informant, you could say, informant, that is also something I do, and something that definitely I appreciate some support for. So thank you very much for doing that. Now, going into the video, my list will actually start with being young, or actually being old, because it is age is a strange thing, because in Denmark we actually have a rather large elderly population. So they should be, according to size, the norm, but they're not. And my generation, I have turned 50, I'm not the norm either. Young people are the norm, although their size isn't all that big. But it is the time that we live in that dictates the norm of being young. And I don't know if you've noticed, when you go to restaurants or shops, the music in the loudspeakers, it's a young people's music most of the time, right? There might be exceptions, of course. Clothes that you can buy in the shops, I find sometimes a little too young for my taste, but what can I do? Of course, I have clothes from way back that I can mix and match with and all of that. Mix and match, that's what I wanted to say. But it has become, for people my age, it's become more difficult actually to find clothes that I find that I like, that are not really suitable for my age, but just suitable for me, which is also my age, right? So that is the young people's market, you could say. Same thing for TV programs and the job market. I mean, that is a strange one, right? Because you have to have experience in order to even enter the job market, but you also have to be young at the same time. Yeah, it's a tricky one, right? And you also, it's not good if you have children, but if you do, then they have to be like past that time where you need to leave because they're sick, or they have to be driven somewhere, or that's a little difficult if you're 25, right? But it's also difficult if you are, say, mid-50s at the job market. People don't want to hire you. There's a lot of age discrimination in both ends, you could say. We're at both ends. I'm just going to click something here. But in general, being young is the norm. They kind of dictate the world, and I find myself finding that we live in new sorts of 1970s, because back then, I mean, I'm born in 75, so it's not like I really remember the 70s that much. Certainly not from a very observatory kind of perspective, but I know about the 70s, right? The young, they were out there, they were revolting, they were demonstrating, they were protesting, they were getting their voices heard and changing a lot of things. That's what they wanted, doing all of that, right? So that is also what I see now. I see young people out there about climate, about wars, about gender, sexuality, all of this, trying to change the world. And in some ways they are. And in some ways I'm definitely happy for that. I mean, should I choose the far right or woke, I would choose woke any day. But because I have the age that I have, you can't see me, because I have the age that I have, I also find that woke is a little bit exaggerated sometimes, and a little bit about not taking responsibility, about wanting people to notice you all the time in all situations, and about you not having to take responsibility for yourself. And now this is tilting again. I've heard young people say that they don't like that the teacher in school is asking them questions in class, that they should only be asked questions if they raise their hand. In Denmark, we actually don't raise our hand, we raise our finger. Yeah, cultural difference. And when I talk to them, I try to say, but how is the teacher supposed to know what you know, or if you've actually studied what you were supposed to study for homework, or if you can solve this math problem? But they really believe that the teacher should only ask those who raise their hand. Yeah, because they don't like speaking up in class. They find that uncomfortable. I think a lot of people find that uncomfortable. I certainly did myself. I did not like to raise my hand. I seldomly did, but I do understand where the teachers are coming from. I am also a teacher myself right now, but in a different way and for much smaller groups, often one-on-one. But I get where the teachers are coming from now that I'm a teacher and especially an adult. But that is their thing today. I know someone who teaches young people, and she finds it very, very difficult to have them engage in class. She asks questions. She wants them to raise their hand. She wants them to speak up. They don't. They don't want to say anything. How is she, as a teacher, supposed to, like, conduct the class? Yeah, so it's difficult, right? But that is what I see, that young is the norm today. And because I mentioned this as the first part of my list, the first point of my list, because I think that a lot of the other points on my list are viewed through that lens of being young. It is a woke kind of view that society has on these different points on my list, at least I think. For some part, but it is also very much a Danish way of seeing things sometimes. It depends. So let's get into the rest of the list. There is a lot, and as a rule of thumb, I could say already now, and I was actually thinking about making that my title for this video. Being outside the norm in Denmark, it's your problem. Yeah. And that is, of course, just a rule of thumb. But in general, that is the case. And I'm going to get back to this. But that is what you're going to see throughout this video. A lot. But I will get to a little bit about why that is, and also what you can do, at least for some points on the list. So the next point on my list, I mean, this is just a random list, actually. So there might be some that would be suitable before or after the other, but I've just listed as they came to my mind, okay? Being part of the LGBTQ plus segment or community, that is a tricky one, because in Denmark we are known for being very open since like the 70s. Again, the 70s, right? Since the 70s, we've been pretty open toward gay people, as in a broad sense, gay people. That is homosexuals, that is homosexual men and lesbians. Those two types we've been pretty open toward for many, many years. But the rest is something that we don't really get it. We don't really understand much about it. Either gender or sexuality. We don't really get it. We still look to the US. There's a lot of debate about the US these days, especially in Denmark because of Greenland, all of that. But also in general, due to the political scene right now. But we still look to the US a lot. And we get their perspective that is probably more Democratic than Republican, I'd say, on LGBTQ+. And that is something that we are learning more and more, but in the sense of doing what the US is doing, that is on the Democratic side, we are behind. That is, we don't get much of it. We don't understand what it is. I remember being at a meeting where there were a lot of Americans, a lot of Danes, and a few other nationalities. And we were told how many genders there are. And I don't remember the number, actually. I think it was 51, but I have also heard way up there. So just don't don't take this for like a fact in any way, but I could literally see on the faces in the room who were the Danes and who were the Americans, at least. Because the Danes, they went... they were speechless. They were like dropping their jaws. And the Americans were more like... like they knew this already. We had no clue. Of course, I had heard there are more genders. Again, according to young people, this is through the lens of young people, right? Because my generation, we often find there are 2 genders. We really need to learn more about this, whether we believe this or not. We really need to know more about this whole thing, understand it more, probably respect it more, yeah? But we were so shocked. And I think I saw in the eyes of the other Danes what I was thinking myself, oh my God, what am I gonna do if I get students who have different genders or different sexualities that I don't understand? What if I say something wrong? What if they're going to complain about me? I mean, all these thoughts, right? I was shocked. This is some years ago, so I've gotten a little bit more used to this, and I've had more students with different genders and different sexualities, and most of them are pretty open, actually. I have a lot of American students that I teach at a study abroad program. So they tell me about this, and that is also a thing. If you ask politely, if you ask to learn, if you ask and show your curiosity, they're more inclined to be open and informative than just block and go into like a defense kind of mode, right? But the thing is about being from another gender than the 2 that we normally hear about, or a different sexuality, that is difficult in Denmark because a lot of people don't know about these genders or about these sexualities, and they are downright going to find you weird. They don't understand. And a lot of them, they don't want to understand either. Some of them are going to say that it is not true, or it's just to provoke, or they are just weird, or they're just not normal, or they should be treated for some mental issues. I mean, there are so many perspectives or like views, opinions out there. If you come from this community, you should know that. Danes are not that open when it comes to all of this. And I have to say also, even gay men and lesbian, like gay women, it's going backward. I know people from this community, and they say it's going backward. That is, we are not as open as we used to be. Usually you would find that once you open up to something, you will stay open and you will progress. And we have this progressive society. Not anymore. It's going backwards. And that's also due to the political climate right now. Denmark is definitely being influenced, maybe not by the whole thing, but by the debate, at least in the US. And in European countries around us who are also discussing all of this. So just be aware that people might not be open toward this. I'm sorry to say. Maybe you can't share it with your colleagues. Maybe you can't share it with your friends if you have a different gender or a different sexuality. Just saying. Yeah. I'm going to get back to the general thing about being outside the norm later on in this video, right? But it is debated, all of this in Denmark, and the sports arena is discussed what to do if you are a different gender and you have, if you've changed into a different gender, which kind of sports team should you be on? The one for men, the one for women. There are only 2 types normally, right? What about bath and toilet facilities? What to do about them? And yeah, I think in Sweden they're more progressive than they are in Denmark, than we are here. I think they have very like general bathrooms and toilets, more than we have here. We've started, definitely, and I see them. And I also hear students say, okay, I came into the bathroom and there were men around me, if it were a woman, right? And vice versa. I mean, yeah, we share more now than we used to. Yeah, it's coming, I think, but it's going slowly, and I don't know if it's gonna go like one step forward, two steps back. Still, yeah. Another way of being outside the norm is ethnicity. That is skin color. If people can see that you have a different skin color than white. In Denmark, as I'm sure you have discovered upon entering this country, that we are a very homogeneous country. We are a country of mainly white people. That means that when you go down the street, when you're in the shops, the restaurant, the workplaces, your circles, friends and family, most of them, if not all of them, will be white. White is the norm, and if you have a different skin color, you're outside the norm. And that is difficult because historically, Danes are not used to seeing people with a different skin color. So, I mean, we're still a global society. That is, Danes travel a lot, actually. You will meet Danes all over the world. Danes travel a lot, and far out and widespread. So of course we've seen different colors. It's just that we're not used to them in our own country, like historically. So if you have a different one than white, you might find some Danes looking at you. You might experience racism, discrimination, exclusion. Yeah. I'm not saying I like this. I'm just stating a fact. Danes are not used to other types of skin color, especially not outside the bigger cities. That is Copenhagen, Aarhus, Odense, Aalborg. If you live in the countryside, if you live outside of the bigger cities, especially outside of Copenhagen, people will look at you, I think. Not that it's a nice thing, it's just a warning that if you are moving here, if you just moved here, that is the case. I once talked to some American students that I teach, and I said, is it true when I think that when I walk down the street, I'm thinking the next person I'm going to meet is going to look like me? Is it true that you in the US are thinking, maybe not like consciously, but like subconsciously, you might be thinking the next person I'm going to meet probably does not look like me? Is that true? And they said, yes. So that might be an American thing, because as we all know, the American society is just very, very varied. There are lots of different skin colors, lots of different religions, lots of different people with lots of different backgrounds, right? In Denmark, this is not the case. You will be outside the norm if you have a different skin color than white. So that is tough. And you probably will find yourself feeling outside the norm. Yeah. I have only experienced this like very clearly once in my life. I am married, and my husband is half Inuit. His mother was from Greenland, and many years ago we attended actually an annual thing that is going on in Denmark, which is Hilsen til Grønland. It is a gathering, a physical gathering, where Inuit people from Greenland, all over Denmark, they meet at a certain place. Often it's in Tivoli, but it can be in other places too. We were at another place, I actually forget where. Lots of people from Greenland there, and it is a very nice experience. They send off greetings online to people in Greenland. People in Greenland send greetings for their relatives in Denmark, and there is entertainment, singing, I don't know, stand up or whatever. I mean, some sort of entertainment. We were there with my husband's family, and I found myself as a minority for the first time in my life. That is, I have been traveling, and of course I might have been a minority during my maybe 1 week vacation in a country, right? But this was different because it was one day, a few hours, like very compact experience. And I was just looking around thinking, whoa, most of these people don't look like me, or the other way around. I don't look like most of these people. I'm a minority. This was in an environment that was kind, mind you. They were nice toward me. They didn't treat me badly. They didn't look at me with a stare or anything like that. I was respected, accepted, just like any other person who attended this event. And I was thinking, how about those people who experience this every single day? That they don't look like the people around them, and that the people around them are not nice. Maybe even the opposite. Maybe they are victims of hatred, violence, theft. It was very, very educational for me, and I have never forgotten it. And I think about it a lot when I see people with other skin colors. And I must admit, I know that especially Black people, they don't like people say I don't see color. I have yet to understand exactly why, because in particular in the US, I think that a lot of people, they don't really notice anymore because everyone looks different from the other. So but I have to admit, I do see color. I do notice. Every single time I see a Black person, I do notice. Every time I see someone with a different skin color, it be Latino or Arabic, or I mean, you're not Arabic skin color, I know, but you get my point, right? Someone from that community of ethnicity. And I don't say all of this to offend anyone. I'm not particularly eloquent right now. I realize that because I don't have much of their appropriate language or vocab to talk about this. But that doesn't mean that I think any bad things about people with other ethnicities or skin colors. I teach them all the time, okay? But I notice, because I live in Denmark, because most people here are white. Yeah. So that is something that you need to get used to. It is like that here. Yeah. And that leads me to religion, because some people with another ethnicity and another skin color, they come from other religious backgrounds than Christianity, which is the one that we have in Denmark. We are Protestants. That's our religion. I'd say that people from very strong religious backgrounds, when they come to Denmark, they probably don't find that we are that Christian, because to find out this, you need to go like below the layers, so to speak. You need to get into Danish circles and society, workplaces, live here for quite a while, I think, to find out that we are Protestants. We do stand upon their Christian base, you could say. It's everywhere. It's in our language. It's in our norms. It's in our culture. It is. But from the outsider's viewpoint, I think we come across pretty much as atheists. Yeah. Because it is not that visual. We have our churches, and in certain areas of Denmark, definitely Christianity is a thing, and it is there, and people go to church. But as a whole, as a country, as a whole, in our country, we come across as atheists, I think, from the outside. And people who come here with strong religious backgrounds, they need to know something, and that is that, broadly speaking, having a religion, a faith in your life is frowned upon in Denmark. Yes. I say this with regret because why should you not be proud of your religious background? As long as you're not preaching it to anyone else. I find that religion is private. We also see it that way in Denmark. Religion is private. You will not get a good experience if you try to preach your religion to us. We don't like that. But that is what it is. As I said, I teach American people, and they come from a lot of different religious backgrounds, and they're very proud, and they are used to being respected, accepted, and maybe that people ask them questions, open, curious, kind questions about their religion. This is not the case in Denmark. It is not. That is just a fact. And I feel so sad for people coming with that perspective, because they will be so shocked when they find out that we're not open toward other religions. We're not open, we're not curious about other religions. When I say we, it's in general, right? I'm very curious. I ask all sorts of questions because I teach people from all over the world, and I love learning about other cultures, and part of cultures, that's religion, right? But most people don't. They don't teach other cultures. They don't. They don't. Interact with people from other cultures. Not much. And most of them are not curious. They don't want to know. They find them weird, not interesting, wrong even. Yeah, that goes for a lot of the things about being outside the norm in Denmark. If you're outside the norm, you are wrong. You're not just different, you're wrong. Yeah, take that in, right? Yeah, so being religious in Denmark, especially if you are not religious within Christendom, we can tolerate, I would say, people within their Christian religions to an extent. I mean, if you are very particular, and if you, I don't know, if you say, oh, I can't attend this, I have to go to church, or I prayed to God that this would happen, and it did. The Danes are not going to find that it happened because you prayed to God. They're going to think, well, that it would have happened anyway, or it was a coincidence, or, I mean, they're not going to find that it was due to your praying. So that is the thing about religion in Denmark. We don't really accept it much, and we don't want it to be that visible, or that clear in our society. So if you are religious in a visible way, that is, if you wear a cross or calotte or any type of Muslim attire, whether it be a man or a woman, and any type of something visual from your religion, and it is very visual, then it's probably not going to be looked upon as a good thing from the Danish perspective. Yeah. Religion is definitely debated in Denmark, especially the Muslim religion, especially on the far right political spectrum. There's a lot of discussion about indoor pools. Should we have certain time slots that are only for women? Should we have rooms to pray in public institutions like universities or workplaces in general, etc., etc. It's debated, and I think it's going to take a long while to finish that debate, to get anywhere with it. But we do see places where they actually do have prayer rooms, where they do have separated men and women, time slots in indoor pools, etc. But it is difficult in Denmark to be from a different religious background than the one within the Christian religion. My next point on my list is food. Food is of course also connected a lot to your cultural and religious background. It is also connected to allergies and preferences. When I say preferences, that is how a lot of Danes see it. If you say, I'm a vegetarian or I'm vegan, a lot of Danes are going to find that's a preference. That is a choice. When I say this, it's because, again, if you're outside the norm, it's your problem. This means that if you are invited to a party or a gathering or just a dinner at a Danish home, first off, of course, they can't know if you have any allergies or preferences or things that you don't eat due to your religion. And just a side note here, we know some things about the Muslim religion. That is, we know about pork and things like that. We don't know much about being a Jew. What is kosher? We don't know. And a lot of people, they don't want to know. They don't care. I'm just saying it downright, right? I mean, plain here. I'm just being frank. They don't know. If you're from the US, you'll be shocked at how Danes don't know about being a Jewish person. Because the Jewish community in Denmark, yeah, it exists, definitely. We just don't know about it. They are quiet people. They don't really make a whole loud thing about themselves. We don't really hear about them. We hear a lot about the Muslim people, and that is because the far right has a lot against them. We don't hear about the Jews. And that is something, just going briefly back to religion. Due to historical reasons, Jews have been somewhat protected in Denmark since World War II. And that came up in a debate, actually, and it's still going on, but not as much as it used to some years ago, about circumcision. And our Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, said, we have promised to protect Danish Jews. That was something she said because it was a debate whether we should allow circumcision in our laws or not. And due to the whole Gaza thing, which is of course not new, but to some people it started October 7th, 2023. Of course, it actually didn't. But due to all of that, the whole debate has been up again because of the conflict. And then it's a little more, Jews have been mentioned more, I would say. And some are afraid that people can see that they're Jews and they're going to do something to them. And there have been protests, especially in the bigger cities and so on, about the conflict in Gaza and so on. So that has risen again, this debate. And that has made some people more knowledgeable about the Jewish way of life. But still, Danes don't know much about it. So again, about food, we don't know what kosher is. Not much. Not most people. So if you are going to a party or a gathering or just a dinner, don't expect Danes to know what not to serve you or what to serve you. They don't know, and they don't it's not that they want to provoke or anything. They don't want to offend you. They just don't know. And again, from a Danish broad perspective, it's your problem if you have allergies, a religious background that dictates a certain things, or preferences like being a vegetarian or vegan. You will hear a lot, and I have personal experience with this because in my family, some people have celiac disease, and that is difficult in Denmark as a whole. Some people don't know about gluten that much. They would ask you really weird questions. Is there gluten in carrots or in rice? I mean, yeah, they don't know. I've been a little shocked as to how much they don't know. And it's very difficult to have celiac disease or just intolerance toward gluten in the Danish society, because lots of restaurants, you can't choose anything and be sure that it hasn't been contaminated with gluten if there is not gluten in it. Of course, you can't eat the normal regular pasta, but you can't know if something in their kitchen has touched gluten. And you can really ask them to. They don't know much about it. Some places do, but it is rare, especially outside of Copenhagen. Yeah, even in Copenhagen. Sometimes some cafes will serve gluten-free cakes. They will have them in a montre at a shelf, but above and below there will be things with gluten in them. You can't really know if the one that is supposed to be gluten-free is actually gluten-free due to contamination from the other cakes. That is just one example. Excuse me. If you go to someone's house or a party, you can ask about the menu and so on. Don't expect them to change it so that it will benefit you. They probably won't. Also because if it's a party, they might have ordered the food from outside and it costs money, and they've already ordered it a long time ago and so on. If they make it themselves, you might be able to ask them to make something for you or put something aside and not put blah blah in it, or have it at a different table, but you can't be sure. Excuse me, a little dry throat here. You can't really be sure. What people would usually say to people with specifically celiac diseases, oh, you know what, maybe you could just bring something yourself. It's just much easier. The only thing that is, the truth in that is, it's easier for them. It is not easy for the guests. I know for a fact, because we have been, in my family, we've had to bring food ourselves so that the people in our family who can't eat gluten, they've had a different menu. Food is a very social thing, right? If you can't eat the same as the rest, you're going to feel as an outsider. You're not feeling included. And I've had to, at private dinners, I've had to go to the hostess or the host and say, I know that you're going to serve ice cream now for dessert. I'm sorry, but can I ask about the ingredients in the ice cream? Because there can actually be, gluten, but we also have nut allergies in my family. Yeah. Not all nuts, but some nuts. And most hosts and hostess, they just look at you like you are rude and a nuisance, and maybe even trying to provoke. But you have to do it for the sake of your family. that is a very unpleasant experience. And I'm sure it is for you if you suffer from any type of allergies or religious preferences, or in general, if it's preferences, Danes would just expect you to just not take what you don't eat. Of course, that is difficult if it's the whole dish. If it's mixed together, or if the main thing in the dish is something that you prefer not to eat. That's difficult. But in general, Danes expect you to just not eat it. You might ask politely, but it's not sure that they will try to make it easier for you. Usually they would expect the guests to make it easier for the host or hostess, not the other way around. Yeah, that is just how it is. One example, two examples actually. My daughter, who has celiac disease, she was going on a school trip way out in the countryside, and she had told beforehand to the teachers, I have celiac disease, I don't tolerate anything with gluten in it, or anything that has touched gluten, which contamination is, right? And I don't tolerate nuts either, not even traces of nuts. And then they were out in the countryside and about to have dinner, and then a teacher came up to her and said, oh, by the way, there is no food for you. Excuse me? That was literally nothing she could eat for dinner. Nothing. And there were no shops around. I think they got there by a big bus or something, and the bus had left hours ago. They didn't have a car. There was no buses, no trains, no nothing. She could literally not have dinner. Someone offered her a bag of nuts because they didn't know about her nut allergies. I don't remember what she got. I think she got some crisps or something, but like only a very, very tiny amount. This was in her school. Just saying. And they knew about it. They just have forgotten. Yeah. We also once attended a gold wedding. It was way out in the countryside in Denmark too, and I think celiac disease has not yet arrived at that place. Yeah, just joking, of course it has, but they don't know about it. I called the place, I called the restaurant, I talked to them, and they were very unkind, very rude, I would actually say, and angry with me for even asking. And if I asked if they had bread in the kitchen, gluten in the kitchen, and they said, of course we have, we bake bread. Right. So right then I knew we had to bring starters, main course, and dessert, and like treats for the coffee afterward. All of what our daughter needed for that dinner we had to bring. And at the place, there was nowhere in the normal kitchen that our daughter could actually prepare all these things. So she had to run to a room outside of where we were dining to prepare the things, run back, have the course, and then when the next course was about to be served, she had to run back, make the thing, go back. That's the most extreme example I've experienced, but I don't think it's going to be the last one. So just saying, this can happen. I had asked their hostess and so on, and they had talked to the kitchen as well, and the conclusion was, yeah, you need to bring everything yourself. Yep. Not a nice experience. Moving on to my next point, having diagnoses. Whether it be autism, ADHD, anxiety, depression, things like that. and all the other kinds of diagnoses that you can have. People often don't know much about them, and again, it's your problem. If you suffer from any difficulties due to these diagnoses. And of course, I mean, people can't know what they can't tell, and they can't tell what they can't see. So if something is visible, that is, if you are disabled in any physical way and people can see that, I think most people will be pretty kind and helpful. I think they will. If you are blind, in a wheelchair, if you have difficulties walking much, or like, they will help you if they can see that you need help. But you might have to wait a while. It's not like the first person who sees you is going to help you. But maybe eventually, like out in the streets, right? They will help you. I remember in school we were taught that if we see a blind person who might need help crossing a street, we can't just run to that person and grab their arm and just like drag them across the street. We have to ask, right? Because these people are people. They just can't see. They're not able to see. But they are just like any other person. No one likes to be grabbed by the arm. Just like that, they'll be shocked because they can't see you. And if there's a lot of traffic and people around them, they might not be able to hear you either, right? So go to them, ask them, do you need any help crossing the street? And so on, right? But in general, people can't know what they can't see. But physical disabilities, I think Danes are pretty friendly. I mean, I travel with a train a lot, and there is a quiet zone in there, and sometimes there will be a blind disabled person coming in, and people would actually say, oh, there's a seat available next to me, right here to your right. People will say that, sometimes at least. Yeah, I will say that as well. And help in any, like, if it's a physical thing, right? If it is not physical, people can't see it and they can't know it, and it's more difficult to help. And I think we don't know that much about mental health in the Danish society. We are getting there, but very, very slowly. And this actually comes from the US. I think we are learning more. I also know that I think now the prince in England who has abdicated, but he was talking about mental health in public. And I think that is a very good thing to do when you are a famous, known person. You can help people in that sense so that it gets easier for people with mental issues. It's almost like people think that it's like you're going to get infected or something, right? So people understand a broken leg more than they understand a broken psyche, right? So it's more difficult, definitely, in Denmark. I know from personal experience different things that I struggle with, and if I tell people, the very few people I've told about these things, they look very surprised, and they look at me like I'm weird and almost like contagious in some way, which I'm not. And I'm still me with all the other things that make me me. But people are afraid of anything that is not physical, even the tiniest thing, which is what I'm talking about here in my own case. They don't like it. They feel uncomfortable, and they don't know much about it. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to help you. Yeah, there is a visible thing that might indicate something, and it's international. It's not just in Denmark. It's the sunflower lanyard. It's not a string. In Denmark we call it a string. We call it, in Danish we call it in solsikkesnor. Snor means a string. So it's a white string. It's, I think, green with sunflowers on it, and you can wear it like a necklace, or maybe you can wrap it around your arm like a bracelet, or you can tie it on your bag or your jacket, but make it visible. You can get these at libraries, I think, and other places too, I think. I've seen them at libraries, and you get them for free. You just ask. They don't ask anything. They don't ask why you need it. You just say, I'd like a sunflower lanyard in solsikkesnor, and they just have to get it for you. No questions asked. Yeah, you really need to know this. They're not allowed to ask you any questions, and they won't. They won't. Put that anywhere visible for people to see so that they know you're outside the norm and it is something that is hidden. They can't see that you struggle or suffer from anything. And this means that if you act in a way that would be considered outside the norm, people can see your sunflower lanyard and they then know, okay, this person needs a little more tolerance than other people would need. It's very good. Yeah, it's a good thing. So ask for it if you need it. Yeah, I wrote dyslexia, and that is because there is dyslexia in my family, so I have a personal perspective on this. People have all sorts of ideas about what dyslexia is, and the people that I know in my family who suffer from this or who struggle with this, they get a little tired because people would say, oh, so the letters are jumping up and down, or oh, so you can't read anything. And just for people who don't know about dyslexia, dyslexia is about reading and it's about spelling. And you might be good at reading but not good at spelling. You might be good at spelling, not good at reading. But any dyslexic person is different from the other. And their skill set in either of the spelling or the reading part is very different too. It can be that they just struggle a little bit, or it can be that they struggle a lot. I know about a famous Danish person who can't read 3-letter words. Yeah. And then there are other people who struggle reading long words, or just words that they have never seen before, or they just read aloud at a little slower pace, or they need more time at exams. You can get more time in Denmark for the most part. It is not set how much more time you get, but I think in most cases you get 1/3 or even more time for, say, writing something at an exam, for example. Sometimes you can also ask for a room where you sit with only other dyslexic people. I mean, ask about the possibilities at your child's school or at your university or other educational institution, right? If you are studying something and you need more time and exams. We call it, what is it called? Something with a bag, I think. IT rucksack, that's what we call it. So an IT rucksack. It is not a physical one, but it means that you might be able to get programs that help you spell and other types of maybe some hearing, like earbuds or something for listening to something that other people would be reading. So ask about the possibilities at your educational institution or your child's school, right? Things are possible most of the time, but I have heard of municipalities in Denmark where dyslexia is not even recognized as something existing. Yeah. I hope it is where you live. Yeah. Ask them if you need any help. Another point on my list here is personality types. And what I'm going to mention here might be something that you find pseudoscience kind of thing. I'm talking about the MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. It was made by Catherine Briggs and Isabel Briggs Myers, mother and daughter, back in the 1950s and 60s, and it is based on what their psychiatrist Jung was developing. It's different types of personality types, and within those, different traits. It might sound very, yes, like pseudoscience. Some people really do view it like that. I have found it myself very helpful. I'm sorry, there is some craftsmen's working in the street. I hope that you can still hear me well enough. I have actually found knowing about my own type, which is INFJ, very, very helpful. When I searched online, it's some 10, maybe I think 12 years ago that I found out that I was an INFJ. I got a pile of paper, big like this, like a whole document, like a whole paper about only my personality type. Today I think you only get like one sheet or like very few lines, or I mean, I don't know where I found it, so yeah. But it helped me a lot. It is very wide, very deep if you really look into it. And you can look at it from many different perspectives. It can be about relationships, friendships, work, and work relationships like colleagues as well, parents and children. It's about what you care about, what you're interested in, your values, etc., etc. When I mention this, it is because, from a personal experience, because some of these points on my list are, of course, personal, I definitely see a challenge in my own case, because being an INFJ is being among the 1 to 2% of the population, which means there aren't that many people like me out there, which means I don't have a whole lot of people who can relate to my personality type, and I can't relate to a lot of other people. Of course, I can't just relate to only my own personality type. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of the time I feel like I'm some sort of alien compared to other people. There's so many things that I don't see the way they see them. There's so many values that I have that other people don't have, etc., etc. So it can be difficult if you have a personality that a lot of other people don't have. You can feel pretty isolated and like a little bit outside the norm. So it is up to me, of course, to find my way in life, and I still do. But it has helped me a lot knowing about this. When I got my whole pile, I read it on the train. Don't do that. Just saying, because it was the first time I saw myself being described. It was the first time ever that I felt seen, understood, recognized. I mean, I was crying as little as I could, but it was in the public space, right? It was very difficult because it was such a relief knowing that I was actually being seen here. And of course, there was a lot of positive things. So I was very proud, and I was very happy, and there was all their like the negative sides of my personality, which there is to all personality types, of course, good and bad for all of them, right? But it was also like, yeah, that's also my type. But don't do it in a public space, because it will hit you. If you don't know anything about it and you feel seen for the first time, it will hit you hard. And it took me months, if not years, to really grasp what it was all about. I'm still learning about my type, yeah. But it can be very useful for you to navigate your life better. Yeah, that is essentially why it's a good thing to know about your personality type. Yeah. Yeah. Added to that, you could talk about intelligence. And of course, if you've moved to Denmark and you see Denmark as some sort of Shangri-La, like a paradise, and you're thinking that this is a progressive, open, well-educated, intelligent society, well, there's going to be a lot of background noise now, but I hope that you will still stay with me. It's only going to take a while, okay? Yeah, we have our garbage bins emptied. Anyway, if you think that this is like the very well-educated, intelligent, progressive society that you have arrived at, and then you are disappointed, well, yes, because average in Denmark is just average like in any other country, and average also means that most people are average. That is just a fact, and we are no different in Denmark. We are no different. So that means that you're going to see the same thing here as you saw back home. Yeah. If you are above average and you look for people who are above average and you can't really find them, we also have the organization, or I don't know what you call it, Mensa, M-E-N-S-A, in Denmark. You can look that up and find people who are also way above average to find your tribe, so to speak, right? Because Denmark is a society where we don't really, you don't really talk much about intelligence. It is frowned upon. If you have a higher intelligence than other people, you don't really talk about it. It might be very clear to people, but you don't really say it. We are a society that takes care of the people who are below average in a lot of different ways. I mean, also socially, with our whole welfare system, all of that. But intelligence-wise, if you were above average, if you were able to solve problems and whatnot, I mean, also socially, if you can take care of yourself, it is seen as the same thing when it comes to intelligence. That is that okay, so you're so intelligent, then you should be able to do this or that, or boo-hoo-hoo, poor you're so intelligent. Like, you can't really complain about being intelligent. So if you really struggle with that, you can't find people like you, look at Mensa, take their test, see if it's something that you can pass. If not, try and find groups online to be with, so that you can find people like you. Yeah. I think I'm getting to my final point here. On the list. Yeah, on the list. I'm gonna get to some more things after this. I know this video is very long. It's past an hour. I hope that you've taken the breaks in between if you needed that. Yeah. It is a video, right? You can just pause whenever you want. You can get back to it whenever you want. Please like and subscribe, though, if you haven't done it so far and you've liked this video so far. Thank you. My last point is, of course, being a foreigner in Denmark. That is, per definition, making you be outside the norm, right? And as I said about ethnicity and skin color, people don't know. And people don't know about your cultural background. And they don't know a lot about other cultures, except from all the vacations they've taken in the world, right? But if you go on vacation, it's not a whole lot you'll learn about the culture. Like, really learn about the culture, the layers. Yeah, they don't know that. So if you come from a different background, if you're a foreigner in Denmark, definitely you're going to find yourself outside the norm one way or the other. And it might be some traditions that we have. It might be our language for sure, right? That is what I teach. But it might be our culture as a whole, things that we do differently, maybe even subtle things, like little things in daily life where you would be thinking, why do they do that? Or why don't they do this? Or why was that wrong when I said this? Or why did they say that to me? That was like an insult. I mean, cultural differences can come in many different ways, right? And it is just difficult. And that is why I have this channel. It is to help you understand the Danish culture better. And of course, there are many videos out there. There are many books out there. There are many articles out there. It's not like I'm the only one talking about this. Definitely not. I'm doing it my way. But I hope that some of my videos might also be different from other types of videos about the Danish culture, because of course you can look up like the very clear ones, you could say. But I also talk about some of the other types that are maybe not that clear. And also write in the comments if there are some things that you would like me to talk about. I could try and research about it or talk from my own perspective if I find that I'm able to do that. Yeah, so I definitely would love to hear from you in the comments. But I hear lots of different stories from people coming to Denmark, even people who've lived here for a long time. They still struggle sometimes. And it can be in many different ways. It can be at their workplace. It could be in their circles. Maybe they don't have any friends. Maybe they find that we are cold and reserved. Most people do, actually. We're not cold and reserved once you get inside our circles, but seen from the outside, definitely we are. From a very physical even standpoint, right? The way we sit in the public transport, the way we interact in the streets, we're very cold people, very reserved. Yeah, but we are really not when you get to know us. There might be more points that I could add to this list. Definitely write in the comments if you are outside the norm and you are not part of my list. Write to people what you feel about being outside the norm the way you are, so that other people can learn from your experience and find that at least they're seen by you. Yeah, at least they have someone in this country who knows what they're about and what they're feeling. Yeah. So outside of my list, I like to talk about why this is, why it is so difficult to be outside the norm in Denmark. And the thing is that if you expect Danes to cater to or just understand you because of whatever it is that places you outside the norm, you're going to be disappointed. Yeah? We don't like to have expectations put upon us. That is, that you expect us to understand you, to listen to you whining or complaining, or to cater to your needs. We don't really like that. We might even find that you behave like a self-centered person, or even as a spoiled child. Yeah. However, this said, Danes don't want to neither hurt or offend you. Normally, not. Yeah. They also don't want to be unkind or less hospitable. They just don't know about a lot of things, and they want things to be the way they usually are, and they don't want to be bothered. They don't want to have any inconvenience enter their life, right? That's sort of the short version. But I'd like to just mention why this is. I mean, I think a lot of countries, they want things the way they want them. They want foreigners to adapt, right? And in Denmark, it's the same case. All countries go through what you could call a civilization process. Your country did as well, but we've done it in different ways and in different times in history. That is why we see things so differently. I've learned from an article about Danish humor. I might be sharing a video about Danish humor as well. And by the way, I will be taking a break after this video during the rest of the springtime and the summer. I will be taking a break. So it'll be a long while before I get back to you, but I will get back. Write in the comments, see the other videos, yeah. But in a Danish article about Danish humor, I learned about the Danish civilization process just a little bit. And it's, according to that author, it seems to have started in 1864 when we lost a third of our country to the Germans. We lost a third of our country, and of course the people living there, they became German. And although we got part of this back and then part of the people back in 1920, we didn't get all of it back. We got it back by referendum, actually. So there was no bloodshed. There was no war going on, fortunately. But this happened, and picture a country, picture your country losing 1/3 of its territory, and all the people living there, they become of a different nationality. The enemy's nationality. Picture that. Imagine that. It does something to your population, and it did something to the Danish population that I'd say we haven't recovered since. We had already lost a lot before that, and now we were actually having to deal with the fact that now we were a small country, a small reign or area, which we had not been before. Denmark has actually been huge, or big at least, back in time. We had colonies and whatnot, but now we'd lost everything. We've lost a third of our country, and people became German in those areas. And I just try to imagine what that did to my people. It must have been so shocking, so scary, so surreal. And I think that what people did is that they abstractly grabbed each other's hands, formed a circle, and looked at each other saying, we're all we've got. All we've got now is just us. We've lost so many. We need to stick together. We need to find out how to live with whatever we have now. And when they did that, in my perspective, it might have been that they thought, okay, then we all need to be the same. In order for us to work, that is, to function as a nation, we need to figure out what being Danish is. And then we need to stick to that. So that if you stand out in any way from this agreed contract of what made you a Danish person, what made us Danish, then you were too different, you were wrong, and you were an outsider, and we didn't like that. We didn't like outsiders. We've also just experienced that outsiders came and took our territory and people, right? We didn't like outsiders. That has stuck somehow in the Danish mindset throughout generations. This type of thinking, this mindset has sort of been kept in our minds throughout the generations. Since then, I haven't experienced that, right? It's been in the mindset of my ancestors and before them and before them and before them. And also, historically, it's not that long ago. 1864 is not that long ago. That is what happened. And I think that caused what we also called the law of Jentelån. And I've already made a video on this, so go watch that one, Jentelån, which is just briefly about being the same, being equals, not standing out. And if you know this about the Danish people, we are like this due to the fact that we lost all of this and we thought we have to stick together, we have to be the same in order to work, in order to function, in order to not fall apart and lose even more. We have to make this country work. Then you know where we're coming from. And maybe it's a little bit more understandable why we are the way we are. That if you stand out, we don't like that. You need to be like us. Otherwise, you're an outsider and you're outside the norm. We're not going to help you much. It is your problem. Yeah. So, is there nothing you can do to get just a little support and help from the Danes if you're outside the norm? Yes, sometimes. I think especially if it comes to food. I mean, Danes and people really, in general, understand concrete things more than they understand underlying issues. That is why we understand a broken leg or a blind person better than if you suffer from anxiety or autism, for example, right? I think that goes for people in general. Regarding food, you can talk to the host or hostess of a party or a gathering or just a simple dinner. And we don't like, as I said, expectations to be put upon us, but we are more open to people who are polite, to people that we can see, understand that they take responsibility for themselves. They don't complain, they don't whine, they certainly don't try to provoke, and they don't demand and require things from us. Yeah, so if you ask about the menu, for example, very downplayed when you ask, and people tell you, and you say, I'm sorry I have to ask this, but we have some allergies in our family. Is it so that I can ask you about the menu? I think most Danes would give you the menu. And if there are any trouble at the menu, you can ask about it. Like, I'm sorry, but can I ask what's in the sauce? Or can I ask if the bread could be maybe moved to a different part of the table? Or, and sometimes people will look at you like, are you requiring something from me? Are you expecting me to cater to your needs? Retreat. Try a different angle. And probably it will end up with you bringing something yourself, whether it be for your allergies, that is that there's no contamination, there's nothing in it that you can't tolerate, or it's because of your preferences, you're vegetarian, you're vegan, or you have some religious preferences and so on. It will probably end up with you bringing something for you. But you might be lucky. Sometimes, and we experience that in my family as well, sometimes people will cater to your needs and say, oh, you know what, I'm just going to make a small part of this vegetarian. Or, you know what, I'm just going to bake gluten-free bread. Then there is no issue. Or, you know what, I'm just not going to put nuts in this cake. Or, you know what, you can just not take the bacon. That's fine. Or can you bring your own dessert, for example, or your own treats for when we have coffee after dinner? They might ask that of you. Again, in the Danish society, it's better that you show that you take responsibility for your own whatever it is that make you outside of the norm. And don't make any requirements at the host or hostess, but take the responsibility and the nuisance upon yourself. Yes. This was about food that I just mentioned, right? If you are outside the norm in any other way, it is more nuanced, it is more complex. A rule of thumb is it is your responsibility, it is your problem. And my advice to you is find your tribe. And I know that can be difficult. That can be difficult. Currently, I'm trying to find people who like to write. That is a strange way of being outside the norm, and it's not really a big problem like that. But it is difficult in the area where I live because I would like a physical group of people who like to write. And I have tried different ways of attracting people to form a group with me, and I haven't succeeded yet. That's just one example. So you might live in an area where there are no other disabled people, or there are no other vegetarians, or there are no, that is when online comes in handy, right? You can try online. It's not the same as physical. I get you. I hear you. But it's better than nothing. And I do have a writers group, not my own. I didn't start it, but I've been invited into a writers group online, and it is helpful. Yeah, it helps me a lot. So see if you can find people that you consider part of your tribe, your community. That is the best recommendation I can give to you. And of course, you can try out things with the Danes. See if there is something that can work where you can get a little bit of support, or a little bit of help, or a little bit of a listening ear. Just don't expect it. Yeah. This was a very long video. I think it's the longest I've ever made. But I found it so important for people to know that when you're outside of the norm in Denmark, as a rule of thumb, it is your problem. Yeah. I hope that you got something out of this video. I really hope that it helped you a little bit. Write in the comments what you thought of this video. Write in the comments if you're outside of the norm in a certain way that wasn't on my list. Write under in the comments, even if you being outside the norm was on my list. Write the way you find that it is difficult, or ways that you have found, and even more importantly, right, to help yourself and maybe even a community where you find your tribe. Thank you so much for watching. And as I am a Danish teacher, I also wish you happy Danish learning.